And our story begins with a great battle taking place beneath a sky filled with dark, heavy clouds in a distant and unknown land. On the other side, strange precious stones appear, along with a woman who has her hands bound. She is being offered as a sacrifice in a twisted ritual. She regains consciousness right when we begin to see her, while a group of hooded men chants words that end up summoning a very sinister shadow. The shadow of the monster stretches out until it reaches the girl's feet. She realizes the danger, and a tear falls down her cheek, and she begins to scream for help. Suddenly, the true body of the creature rises from the shadow, and that's when we see a gigantic black dragon preparing to strike. But unexpectedly, the girl's posture changes completely, and she casts a spell called Deus Katina. This spell shatters all the ropes binding her and makes her disguise vanish. Instead of being just another sacrifice, she ends up becoming the true executioner of the dragon. She grabs her sword and, together with her companions, begins the ritual to seal the monster. Among the hooded men, one of them decides to reveal himself, and it's Hiro, the boy who is leading the ritual to imprison the creature. Near him, another boy appears carrying a shield that's even larger than he is, and both of them prepare to complete the sealing of the dragon, whose name is Dagonzoto. With everyone's combined efforts, they manage to trap Dagonzoto inside a sphere. That will be his magical prison for all eternity. And it's at this moment that we understand that this dragon had been causing destruction all across the region. Right afterward, we see Hiro bleeding, which throws everyone into panic. But even so, he urges the woman with the sword to continue the ritual and not stop just because of him. However, at a certain point, Dagonzoto manages to destroy the boy's shield, leaving him completely defenseless. The dragon wastes no time and launches an attack. And Hiro and the woman who are the boy's parents try to run toward him before Dagonzoto destroys everything. Seconds later, the boy is shown in shock, with a strange mark appearing on his shoulder and spreading to his chest. At the same time, Dagonzoto gains the same mark in the same place on his body, and shortly afterward, the dragon's flames ravage everything around them. Years go by, and in the future we see Hiro, now grown up, walking through various regions. He's wearing a cloak over his body and a sword hanging on his back. After traveling for a long time, he arrives at a city as night begins to fall, and he joins a line with several others waiting to get through the gates. When it's his turn, the guard lifts Hiro's hood and is shocked to see who he is, and ends up allowing him into the city called Lindsay Casey. Soon after, we see Hiro walking through a market full of bizarre creatures, and with all kinds of food and different potions being sold. Out of nowhere, a girl named Erin appears in the sky. She has animal ears, and she lands on the ground summoning soldiers, and right after that, she announces that a man named Nambuko is coming. He's a blonde man in impressive armor, and with him are two very beautiful women, and another one named Sharisharu, who is a rather strange maid. They come down the street in a carriage, tossing coins to the crowd in the market, who rushes to grab them. This makes Hiro give a slight smile as he bends down to pick up a coin that fell near him, but a child gets there first and grabs the coin. Hiro notices the boy and sees he's with two friends, but the friends smack his hand, making the coin fall. And that's when we find out the boy's name is Pechate. One of his friends tells him not to accept money from Nambuko, because he only throws away what he manages to steal from the people. After that, they watch the parade go by, and one of them comments that if they were to take anything from Nambuko, it would be the Grand Troa, which is a glass orb that nobody knows what's inside, but it's said to grant any wish, food, money, or even to kill someone. The children say they have to hurry because the boss is waiting and will be furious if they take too long. But the chubby, mischievous kid ignores them and sneaks onto the parade float, where people keep throwing coins. As expected, Nambuko senses that someone strange is on the float. Hiro, watching everything from a distance, quietly slips away, thinking that this city is full of all kinds of people. Right after that, a man begins telling the story of the place. A man named Dal Halbert saved a girl called Pichuktran, and my god, every name in this anime is weird. But anyway, she was in danger and Dal Halbert came to rescue her from the claws of a fierce dragon that was capable of slicing an elephant in half. Then the man asks if the people there would be able to defeat a dragon, and says that his family has passed this story down for generations. A dragon slayer emblem. He raises his hand to show an emblem, but a child takes advantage of the moment and steals it while he's distracted, still speaking. A troll ends up grabbing the boy, and the man accuses the child of stealing his family's emblem. Hiro steps in, threatens the troll with his sword, and says that no one should draw a weapon without reason. To resolve the situation, Hiro gives the man some money, and he leaves together with the troll. Hiro asks the boy if he's okay, but the kid says he ruined his own plan because he wanted to create a scene and steal the man's money. The boy slaps Hiro's hand, grabs the emblem, and walks away. But after a while, Hiro finds the leader of the children and takes the emblem back. The leader of the little thieves is called Tomet, and they try to fight Hiro, thinking he has taken something that only exists in legend. But when they corner him near a window, Hiro escapes by slipping under the building. Somewhere else in the market, Hiro shows up a giant man with scars all over his face. He asks if anyone has seen Hiro, but no one knows anything, and shortly after, his partner Palapa arrives, a lizard-like man. He says that Hiro stole a large amount of money from him and must be hiding nearby, so they continue the search. Not far from there, they bump into Nambuko, who's with the city lord. We quickly learn that Nambuko is a very influential merchant and begins pressuring the other man, using his guards and their presence to force an increase in sales of something called magicite. But the man argues that if he does that, prices will skyrocket and it could cause a huge economic crisis. Nambuko says it's very simple to control the people, and to prove it, he orders Sharisharu to break a priceless vase right there. The man becomes visibly angry at that, but the guards point their weapons at him, and he immediately backs down. This way, Nambuko proves that he knows exactly how to keep others in line, even when they're clearly unhappy. Right after, Nambuko offers the power of the Grand Troa. As an advantage to him, when the box opens, it reveals a blinding light, shining like a star. While the others debate what to do with it, the small dragon walking with Nambuko gets distracted and starts eating apples, until Pachachi finds him stuck in a ventilation duct on the rooftop. That's when the creature uses its sticky tongue to snatch the Grand Troa from above. But because of that, Sharisharu casts a spell and knocks both of them down, and they're captured by the guards. Elsewhere, a mysterious girl with long hair floats naked toward a lava-filled area. The moment she touches the liquid, everything freezes instantly, and the entire environment becomes covered in ice. She continues walking calmly over the frozen surface as if it were completely natural. Meanwhile, Hiro is still being chased across the rooftops by the gang of child thieves, and we can see they're actually having fun with the chase. But out of nowhere, one of the children slips and falls from a massive height. Hiro appears just in time to catch the boy's hand and pull him back up. Soon after, the other children inform the gang leader that they caught the chubby, mischievous one trying to steal the Grand Troa, and that they're going to finish him off at sunrise. Hiro tries to keep playing along, but the boy says his friend is in danger and there's no way they can keep having fun right now. At dawn, the chubby kid appears tied up right in the center of town, surrounded by guards, and Sharisharu announces his execution, shocking the entire crowd, while Nambuko and the city lord watch the whole thing from a balcony, laughing at the scene. That's when Hiro tells the kids to leave this to him. He confronts Sharisharu, saying that this is going way too far. She laughs in his face, asking what he thinks he is, and Hiro replies that he's a traveling swordsman. Sharisharu wastes no time and orders the guards to attack, but Hiro easily dodges everything and still tells them not to use swords unless it's truly necessary. Then she fires a lightning spell at him, and that's the moment Hiro decides to draw his sword. He strikes several soldiers at once, but the blow has no effect, and it turns out his sword is too small and too light. Sharisharu mocks him, asking if he plans to cook something with that kitchen knife, but suddenly, Hiro appears and jumps in front of Hiro. The children take the chance to free the chubby kid, and right afterward, the creature that travels with Hiro appears as well. He returns the sword sheath to Hiro, but warns him to stop calling him master, and gets annoyed that they got involved in that situation. The creature also says it's Hiro's fault for promising he'd become an amazing swordsman in 10 years. At that moment, Sharisharu opens a chest, and Hiro recognizes it as a sealed treasure that once belonged to his father. That leaves the men on the balcony intrigued, wondering who this boy is. Hiro demands that Sharisharu return the treasure, but she replies that it belongs to her master and that it can even grant the wish to kill him. Then Hiro draws his sword to a blade much larger and heavier than the one Hiro was using. Sharisharu picks up the relic and uses its power to unleash a powerful attack against Hiro and the others. But at the very last second, something crosses the path and diverts the blow, which ends up hitting a distant mountain and completely destroying it. Right afterward, a colossal shadow appears on the ground. Daigonzodo rises, leaving everyone in the city frozen in shock. Hiro feels the panic growing inside and becomes paralyzed with fear. Suddenly, the mark that connects him to the dragon glows brightly on both of them. And during this moment, we learn a bit more about that world's past. The land of Kunnan was divided into 3 great nations. The first was Holy Moria, the second was the kingdom of Iskelfen, and the third and last was the kingdom of Van Lai. And all the kingdoms had equal strength. But from the darkness emerged a wicked dragon with a thirst for destruction, and this dragon was known as Dagonzoto. Back in the present, Hiro feels his heart racing, and something awakens inside him. He begins to run toward the dragon to attack it, but the moment he touches the beast, Dagonzoto uses a strange energy that completely drains Hiro's strength. He collapses unconscious into Hiro's arm. The soldiers try to counterattack using regular weapons, but nothing worked. Sharisharu even scolds them for their pointless attempt. Some attacks end up flying toward Hiro, but Dagonzoto protects him with its own body. After that, the dragon uses its claws to destroy several nearby buildings and vanishes once again. It hides beneath the ground like a living shadow. People start blaming Sharisharu for bringing the dragon back, and meanwhile, Nambuko laughs on the balcony and comments to another lord that the chaos from 10 years ago has returned and now everyone will kneel before them. Later, Hiro is unconscious inside a house with the gang of children and his 2 allies. Hiro takes the opportunity to explain that the master's parents fought Dagonzoto 10 years ago in a neutral area between the 3 kingdoms, but both they and the 100 most powerful mages were consumed by the flame, and those flames are soul-devouring. That type of fire destroys everything in its path, and anyone who dies from it cannot be revived, not even with spell. At that moment, Hiro suddenly awakens, shouting the name of the dragon. He tries to get up and go after it, but Hiro stops him. Hiro insists, saying he needs to avenge his parents' death. Tomet even tries to reason with him. She reminds him that not even 100 mages were able to defeat the dragon. But Hiro argues that he's been training hard since he was a child, and that's when we see his memories of training with Gyro as a little boy, using a wooden sword. But the chubby troublemaker interrupts and suggests that the power of the Grand Troa could be used against the dragon itself. Hiro completely agrees and immediately turns to Tomet to ask where Nambuko is, but he says he doesn't know and doesn't care either after all. Nambuko is an immoral merchant who keeps raising the tax. His goal is to eliminate the city's ruler and gain access to the magical stone. So Hiro decides to go after Nambuko in order to get the Grand Troa and defeat the dragon with it. As they walk through the city, Pelupper reminds Hiro that he still owes him money and tosses him a small pouch with what little gold is left, promising that he'll pay off the debt very soon. When he notices there's less gold than expected, Peluppa asks where the rest went, and Hiro shows him the emblem he got the night before. Peluppa becomes furious when he sees Hiro spent it on a cheap replica of an emblem and begins threatening him, saying he'll shove his hand into that place he knows all too well. Meanwhile, we see Sharisharu questioning some soldiers about Nambuko's whereabouts. They inform her that he went to a place called the Land Where Wishes Die. With that, she creates a mirror using water that allows her to speak with him, and she asks whether she should remain in that city. Nambuko replies that she must keep watching the boy who protected the dragon, while he deals with other matters. Meanwhile, Hiro and his 2 allies are trying to find a place to eat, but they are rejected everywhere because they went against Nambuko and caused trouble earlier. That's when a girl with cat ears named Erin appears. She says she knows a place where they can get a meal, and the group follows her. There, Peluppa and Hiro start arguing while having lunch. Erin reappears and asks if they were the ones who caused the earlier commotion. Hiro replies that it was probably something like that, and Erin wants to know how the dragon appeared and if it has any connection to Hiro being Barrow's son. That question makes the whole group uncomfortable. They want to know how she found that out, but Erin avoids the topic and leaves, sticking them with the bill. This makes Peluppa a nervous wreck, and since he doesn't like spending a single coin, they end up going back to the cat girl's house. But actually, they return to the same house where the kids were before. The kids say they can stay there, and at first, they refuse, but the flirty chubby boy insists. He says he's grateful they saved him, and the next morning, Hiro prepares a breakfast feast for everyone, and the kids eat non-stop. At that moment, Hiro asks if he's really going to Nambuko. Hiro says yes, but stops him from leaving. He explains that outside the city there are dangerous monsters and that he's not ready to face them yet, so he needs to train more and more and become even stronger before leaving. In the end, Hiro makes a deal with the kids. They stay living in his house while he trains to become a good swordsman, and Hiro cooks for them every day. Later, Hiro takes Hiro to train in a remote mountain area a desert full of creatures called slimes, and this one we know all too well. Hiro mocks the idea that fighting these monsters would help him improve, but soon a baby slime jumps on his face and starts choking him. He tries to fight the little slimes, but it's clear he's in trouble. While he's still in the middle of the fight, Hiro goes out to hunt other monsters and gather more supplies. After working with the slimes for a while, Hiro tells Palupa he'd rather face something stronger, and just behind the lizard man, he sees a sand dragon. Palupa says they could make good money selling that dragon's parts, so Hiro goes to attack, but his sword doesn't even scratch the beast. Suddenly, the dragon stops right in front of them and opens its mouth, and out comes the same ice girl we saw before. She gets off the dragon and thanks it for bringing her there. She says goodbye and the dragon leaves at full speed. Then the girl walks up to Hiro, places her ear on his chest to hear his heartbeat, and after a few seconds hugging him, she looks into his eyes and asks him to go with her. Palupa, just like your loyal friend who warns you when Meguru is about to break your heart, tells Hiro to be careful since this girl showed up out of nowhere and carries a creepy staff. But the girl doesn't seem to care and asks Hiro if a dragon is sleeping inside his eyes. At that moment, Hiro asks who she is, and Hiro explains what just happened. Hiro even grabs his weapon, but ends up realizing she's not a threat. Suddenly, he sees the girl named Serato kneeling on the ground picking up pretty stones like nothing is going on. So the three of them grab their stuff and leave as fast as they can, leaving Serato alone in the desert. But Hiro can't stop thinking about it, and back at the kid's house, he's deep in thought while the others are already having dinner. Suddenly, Tomet grabs his bowl and says he'll take it away if he doesn't eat, then asks if he's acting like that because of the girl earlier and if he fell in love with her. But Hiro answers that he just thought she was lost and alone. Meanwhile, we see the city where Chris is staying. She walks around with the soldiers asking everyone if they've seen Hiro, but no one knows anything. She then uses her magic mirror to try to find where he is, but none of the mirrors can locate the hero. Out of nowhere, Serato crosses their path and takes another street, while a hooded man watches her from afar. Once again, we see Nambuko sitting in a hall surrounded by magical orbs that let him communicate with the outside world. Through them, he spreads news to many nations that the dragon who appeared 10 years ago has returned. The goal is to spread panic and confusion among the kingdoms so that they all buy weapons and magic crystals, which he secretly mass produces. Then they contact a doctor named Baharopa. They ask him to develop something extremely powerful so the rulers can take advantage of the situation. Right after the call ends, he looks into the back of his lab and realizes he owns a magic staff identical to Serato. He asks her if she'll be okay, and then we see the girl arriving at the kid's house to meet Hiro again. When she gets there, Hiro asks if she can stay. Tomet allows it, even though Palupa isn't very sure about it. Later, Palupa and Hiro go to the market to sell the monsters they managed to hunt, but they realize that even with the money they raised, it won't be enough to cover the trip and the weapons. Hiro decides to go out and hunt some creatures. He asks Palupa where Hiro is, and he replies that he went out to train and took the girl with him. Far from there, Hiro returns to the place where he used to fight slimes, with Serato watching from a distance, sitting on a tree trunk. But suddenly, a gigantic wolf appears above them. Hiro tries to attack it but fails, and in the attempt ends up injuring his arm. But when he sees the wolf going after Serato, he tries to protect her with another strike. Before he knows it, Hiro is mounted on the wolf with his eyes glowing bright red. Right after, he collapses unconscious beside the creature. He then looks at Serato but sees that she is completely unharmed and realizes she had fallen asleep with her eyes open. Then she notices that Hiro is hurt. With the magic staff, she touches the injured area and the wound disappears instantly, and his torn clothes are restored. Back in the city, Hiro and Serato sell the wolf they had defeated, and with that, he receives his first reward from hunting. While walking through the city, they witness some guards dragging a children's father by force to work in the mines that extract magic stone. With the children crying, Hiro tries to intervene and demands they release the man, but he's taken down with a single blow and carried away by the soldiers. Serato stays with the crying children in despair, and that's when we discover the hooded figure is still spying, and soon after, Tomet and Palupa show up. Hiro is locked in a cell along with other detained men. The children's father tells him that no one who goes to the mines ever comes back, but Hiro believes they can escape using the emblem he got the day before, and starts hitting the wall with it. Meanwhile, Sharisharu keeps using her magic to locate Hiro until a guard informs her he was captured inside the local lord's palace. In parallel, Tomet enters through a secret passage trying to find Hiro, but notices Serato followed him. At the mansion, the governor hears a strange noise coming from a room. When he checks, he finds a huge hole in the vault. As he turns, he sees Tomet and Serato had stolen it. The boy is sitting at the table holding the book and threatens to expose the governor, saying that the book holds proof he stole the king's money. He demands to be taken to the royal castle. The governor demands the book back, but Tomet sets a condition. He must release Hiro and the prisoners from the mines. Before anything worse happens, the governor's soldiers arrive. They capture Serato and Tomet and take the book back. Right after that, Hiro and Palapa also show up, and the boy says that if they recover the book, they can get Hiro out of prison. Upon hearing that, Hiro points his giant sword at the governor. He drops the book, and Tomet quickly retrieves it. Soon after, the group manages to get Hiro out of prison along with all the other detained men. However, when they arrive at the palace, the man informs Sharisharu that the prisoner has been freed. She obviously gets furious, and that night, the prisoners reunite with their families. Hiro watches the scene happily. Tomet asks him how he can understand that feeling since he never had a family. Hiro replies that he doesn't remember his parents, but still holds on to a few memories. Later at the group's base, Tomet is thoughtful, sitting at the window while the rest of the crew eats together at the table. But Hiro holds his bowl like he did before and says that if he doesn't eat, he's going to end up with his food. Right after, he calls the boy inside, saying it's cold out there, and everyone ends up having dinner together. As the boy steps out, we find out that the one watching everything from afar under the hood was Eren once again. In another scene, we see Sharisharu relaxing in some kind of thermal bath, while Hiro and his companions have a weird-looking meal. Hiro tells Hiro they'll have to train again, and that from that moment on, he'll always be by his side, and Serato won't be allowed to come along. Even so, as they leave the house and walk through the city, Hiro notices that she's following them. Then he turns to the girl and says she can't keep following them and gives her a gold coin, telling her to use it if she needs anything. After Hiro and Hiro leave, Serato keeps walking alone through the market for a while until Eren shows up and says she's going to take her to a nice place. Meanwhile, Hiro returns to the desert to face the slime again, but Hiro does not give him space to be alone and ends up getting angry with his attitude. Meanwhile, Eren and Serato arrive at the springs with miraculous waters, the same place where Sharisharu was bathing, but as soon as she notices someone approaching, she hides. Eren explains to Serato that those waters have healing properties but cannot bring back the dead, so she suggests they talk a bit while enjoying the bath. Sharisharu watches the two from behind a rock, but when she realizes it's only girls, she loses interest, yet Eren notices someone nearby. At the same time, Palapa and Tomet are around, looking for a monster that was reportedly seen at the hot springs, and there's a good reward for its head. Suddenly, Tomet looks up and sees Hiro with Gyro, both clearly irritated near the slime. Hiro tries to convince Gyro that it's a waste of time and they could hunt other monsters while continuing the search for the dragon. But Gyro is more rational and says it makes no sense to fight such a strong enemy with Hiro's current power, since he has not even mastered the basics yet. Right after, he comments that Hiro probably has some special gift, since not even the 100 most powerful mages could defeat Dagonzato. Still, when Gyro says that Hiro understands very little about what it really means to be strong, Hiro gets irritated and acts he grabs his sword and throws it toward Gyro. Meanwhile, Eren continues trying to get some information from Serato at the hot spring, but as always, Serato does not quite understand what is being asked, and out of nowhere the cat girl asks who Serato lives. She almost says Hiro's name, but Eren quickly covers her mouth just in time. That's when Sharisharu appears and questions what they are doing there. Eren replies that they just wanted to visit the healing spring, and they thought the place would be full after the dragon attack, so they are surprised to see only 3 people around. Sharisharu then mentions that there's a rumor about a monster appearing in those waters, and they're even paying for anyone who finds it. Upon hearing this, Serato shows the shiny coin she got from Hiro and says she wants to collect many like that. Once again, Eren interrupts her before she says too much and notices that Sharisharu didn't hear anything, as she's dizzy from the steam. Meanwhile, Hiro easily dodges the attack and says he already knows what Hiro is thinking, that with the help of Gran Troa, he will easily win. That makes Hiro even angrier, and he tries a direct strike that catches Hiro off guard, making him defend and seriously wound Hiro. Right after, Tomet and Palapa approach and criticize Hiro for what he did, but he says he'll take Hiro to the healing spring. Meanwhile, Sharisharu's guard watches the path and sees the group carrying Hiro toward the waters. During this, the 3 girls continue chatting about random things until they hear the voices of of Hiro and the other. They are also in the water tending to Hiro, and the wound on his chest starts healing thanks to the spring's power. Eren tries to distract Sharisharu by asking what kind of boy she likes. Sharisharu replies that she only likes Nambuko, the weapons dealer, and that she came there looking for someone he ordered her to find. But sadly, she hasn't succeeded yet, which frustrates her. She ends up mentioning Hiro's name, saying he was recently seen in town, and when she asks if anyone saw him, Serato says yes, but Eren splashes water to cover it up, trying to change the subject by saying it's very cold outside. As Hiro recovers, Tomet notices a mark on his body and asks if that is part of the scar, but Hiro says it looks more like a wart, the result of a strange method Barrow, Hiro's father, used to save his life that day when they couldn't seal Daganzodo. After that, Hiro wakes up and comes face to face with Hiro, and he gets really mad, but Hiro says he just wanted to test his resolve, to see if he's really ready to face everything ahead, since even Hiro must keep walking forward if he wants revenge, and from now on they can hunt as they move. Upon hearing that, Hiro gets super excited and thanks Hiro once more for understanding his side. However, Sharisharu hears Hiro's voice and ends up triggering the signal to awaken the aquatic creature with healing power. Suddenly, several huge tentacles appear, and Sharisharu climbs onto a rock to try to guide it, but the creature ignores her commands and grabs Serato. Sharisharu then yells, telling the creature to get Hiro, but she ends up being caught too and is thrown far away by one of the tentacles. Amidst all that chaos, Eren realizes what's going on and escapes from the water, discovering that it was all a trap set by Sharisharu. Immediately, Hiro's group tries to help Serato. She calls out to Hiro, and at that moment, he rises from the water, slashes the creature to pieces, and manages to free Serato. When Hiro pulls her out of the water, he sees that she was still tightly holding the coin he gave her and smiles at the sight. Back in town, they find out that the reward for the monster was all a lie. But even so, they manage to sell the tentacles for a pretty high price. With that money, the group decides to buy light armor for everyone, and the journey continues. And soon after, the village children gather to say goodbye to Hiro and his friends, but feel a bit uneasy when they notice Tomatin didn't show up. Shortly after, Tomatin appears and announces to his friends that he's going with Hiro because he wants to make a difference and help change this troubled world. The kids happily accept and say goodbye to him, along with the others who stay in town. And a little ahead, they meet Eren, who reveals who Sharisharu really was, the one who set up that trap in the healing water. She says she might join the group, but the others reject her, until Eren, who has feline traits, shows them a map leading to Nambuko. After seeing that, Hiro decides to accept, and they all move on, leaving the city behind. They keep crossing the desert until they see a sign warning about the presence of bears in the area. Even with the warning, Hiro can only think about the dragon. He keeps walking forward while the rest of the group stands still for a moment. Meanwhile, Penelope scolds Eren for tagging along with the group. She says she's there because Hiro allowed it, and at that moment, he trips and falls into a huge sand dune because he was distracted. Soon, a very strange bird appears flying over them, and an eye opens on its belly, allowing Nambuko's spies to monitor the group. As soon as he sees their location, Nambuko orders to call Kurishiro and then asks about the current value of the magic stones. Meanwhile, Hiro's group keeps moving until they find a forest. There, they decide to stop to rest, gather water and food. Tomito is left speechless. He always thought that beyond the city, there was only sand everywhere. Suddenly, the same bird from before shows up again. It tries to attack the group, but they narrowly escape. But the beast turns and prepares to strike again. When Hiro charges in, he tells Gyro that he'll prove his training was worth it. The creature reaches Hiro, but he can't do anything with his little sword. Then Gyro takes over and manages to scare the bird off. After that, the group wonders where they'll sleep that night, and they decide to go deeper into the forest, because the creature was too big to fly through the dense trees. They set up camp, light a fire, and start cooking. Some time passes and Gyro starts worrying about how long Serato is taking to get water. Hiro goes looking for her, but ends up running into Eren, who is sitting on a tree playing the harp. He asks why she's helping the group and what she's really after with all this. But she says she just wants to gather info and earn some money. Hiro says he's going after the Grand Troa no matter what, and asks what she would do if she had that kind of power. Eren replies she'd create the ideal man, someone like Hiro. Right after, he goes to the spring Eren mentioned, where Serato should be. Elsewhere, Nambuko is making deals with a group called the Bonus, selling his inventions in exchange for magic stones. At the same time, he also strikes deals with the Bonus's enemies, known as the Kilias. He offers them weapons to help take them down, and soon after, Sharu shows up with Nambuko, and he warns her that this is her last chance. If she fails, she won't have a place by his side anymore. So he gives her some spy birds that she must use to attack Hiro and his group. Sharu sends out her bird to track the group, and it quickly finds their location. Right after, she opens a magical portal to send her soldiers there. Meanwhile, Hiro and his allies arrive at an area. He also reaches the land Palapa had mentioned as a possible opportunity for trade. Suddenly, Sharu appears before them with her men, and without wasting time, she summons some earth giants to try to block the group's advance. Hiro decides to fight back, but Sharu easily knocks them down with a lightning attack. Hiro offers to help, joined by the other. When they realize Eren escaped the fight, Palapa comments that it's just like her. Right after that, Sharu attacks Hiro again, but this time she uses an ice spell that destroys his sword, leaving the boy completely vulnerable before the sorceress. Hiro tries to reach the battlefield, but one of the giants intercepts him, prevents him from continuing, and even defeats him. Right after, Palapa throws his bandage over Tomet, who pulls out some red cards showing a pink-haired girl. When he throws one of the cards on the ground, a chest with monstrous legs appeared, and from inside the chest comes a girl named Mamu, who asks Palapa what weapon he needs this time. But he replies that his plan now is to get out of there, because if they all get caught, it's over for them. So Serato, Tomet, and Palapa jump into the chest, followed by Mamu. Meanwhile, Sharu is almost taking Hiro to Nambuko, but then Hiro appears running toward them. That makes Sharu really angry, and she casts an even stronger spell, destroying the ground beneath their feet. She traps Hiro inside a bubble filled with thorny vines, and then stabs his hand with the tip of her umbrella, threatening to kill his friend. Upon hearing that, Hiro's mark activates and takes over his body, and within seconds, he starts to transform. His eyes turn red, his teeth grow into fangs, and his nails become claws. On top of that, dark energy begins pouring out of his body, and with a few swift strikes, he takes out several soldiers that were with the sorceress. Seeing this, one of the guards tells Sharu they need to retreat now. Desperate, she opens a portal in the ground to flee. At that moment, Hiro charges in to try to stop her, but before he can reach her, he returns to normal and collapses on the ground, completely drained. Meanwhile, Hiro passes out and several images flash through his mind. Hiro marks on his body the attacks he made and wonders what just happened. And later, he starts waking up in the middle of the desert and sees something approaching through the sand. He tries to get up, but hides when he notices it's Nambuko approaching in his carrot. Mamu teleports to the place where they were before. She praises Palapa for his work and vanishes. There, she finds Giro unconscious, but Serato wakes him up using some kind of magic by touching him. Next, she asks about Hiro, and Giro gets up, recalling what happened before he passed out. When they look around, they see the bodies of the guards defeated by Hiro and try to understand what happened. Meanwhile, Nambuko and his men are with the purple-haired woman, showing off a new weapon created by Baharopa. On the site, there is an orc and some prisoners tied up near a hill, where they place a strange machine. Baharopa activates the machine, and a light begins absorbing both the orc and the humans. Soon, it's clear that the machine merged the orc's body with the human, creating a completely new creature. Upon seeing the result, the woman praises Nambuko, saying the experiment was a success. And from this, we understand that one of the merchant's plans was to build an army full of monsters made this new way. Hiro, witnessing this monstrosity, comes out of hiding and charges at Nambuko with his fists. Since his sword was destroyed, Nambuko reveals he had been looking for him, and lands a blow from behind, ordering the guards to capture the boy. Meanwhile, Hiro's group approaches the site where the soldiers were defeated, and finds his broken sword. Eris then asks if he used some kind of spell. Palapa scolds her for fleeing during the chaos, calling her a coward, and she apologizes, saying she knew the right time to retreat. Right after, Hiro and the others see footprints on the ground and decide to follow them through the desert. Nambuko meets again with the purple-haired woman in a very luxurious room and thanks her for the business. He orders some youths to be brought with food to please the woman and then leaves, saying he just wants her money to continue the research. On the way out, Nambuko comes across Sharu, who apologizes for failing and talks about the enormous power Hiro has. He admits he had no idea the boy was that strong, and hands her a bag of coins as a reward for her and her group. With that, the sorceress hugs him and says she loves him. After that, she throws herself into one of the guard's arms and shouts excitedly that her life now belongs to Nambuko. Meanwhile, Hiro's group reaches the place where he was captured and witnesses the moment the orc is merging with the human. There, Hiro concludes that it wasn't Hiro who did that, but Nambuko, and everyone rushes out to try to find him. Soon we see Hiro tied to a chair inside a room. Shortly after, Nambuko enters carrying a bag full of very strange weapons. The man opens the bag and reveals various kinds of torture tools, telling Hiro that they might end up becoming quite intimate since humans can't endure much suffering. He intends to ask a series of questions until he gets the information he wants. Nambuko then raises his weapon and starts by asking what connection he has with Dagonzoto, but Hiro replies with another question: why so much interest in the dragon? And at that moment, we find out that Nambuko wants to profit financially from the chaos that Dagonzoto would bring if he reappeared. But just as he's about to amputate Hiro's arm, he hears the voice of a royal woman outside complaining about one of the boys. With that, Nambuko leaves the weapon stuck in the furniture and goes out to deal with the situation. Taking the chance, Hiro manages to untie one of his feet, shakes it until an emblem he took from the city falls out of his boot, and tries to escape. Meanwhile, Dr. Baharopa senses Sarato's scent and goes after her with a strange machine that looks like a dog, heading straight to where Hiro is. Hiro keeps pretending he's tied to the chair, and the old man asks why he has Sarato's scent. Upon hearing her name, Hiro recognizes it, and the doctor then wants to know if she's okay and where she is. But he answers that they recently got separated. When the doctor asks where they met, Hiro tells the story of the sand dragon, and how she touched the dragon's chest to hear its heartbeat. Baharopa is shocked by this, and tries to listen to Hiro's heart too. But suddenly he gets scared and says that his heart doesn't belong to himself, so he believes it was destiny that united him and Serato. The doctor asks Hiro to take care of her, but he replies that he's tied up and Nambuko will torture him if he doesn't escape soon. At that moment, the old man pulls out a strange potion and tells him to drink it, saying that if he thinks of Serato while drinking it, it will set him free. Hiro drinks the potion and starts levitating, surrounded by a purple energy, and before disappearing, the doctor says he wishes he could meet Master Tio. Right after, Hiro falls right in the middle of his group, who were watching Nambuko's camp from a distance. He tells them they need to leave immediately. Back in the room, Nambuko finds Baharopa sitting where the boy was, and demands to know what happened to him. The doctor admits he let him escape, explaining that he also lives for Serato. Then Nambuko asks if he hadn't gotten rid of that thing before. Baharopa tells him he can kill him if he wants, but Nambuko refuses, since he still needs the old man to finish a certain project, but makes it very clear that once the work is done, he will pay dearly for what he did. On his way out, Nambuko also comments, intrigued, about what Hiro will think when he finds out the true nature of Serato. Later, Hiro's group hides in a cave, located in an abandoned old magical stone mine. There, Hiro tells them what happened, and Serato says he smells like Dr. Baharopa, whom she openly calls father. Then Hiro turns to Hiro and says what troubles him most is what the doctor said about his heart not being his own. He continues, saying that maybe Baron transplanted the boy's heart with a dragon heart 10 years ago as a last hope, which is why Hiro can sense Dagonzoto's presence and shares the same mark on his chest and in his heart. Hiro also says that maybe that explains why the dragon protected him in the city, and that he might end up awakening a strange power, something he already showed before when he felt fear and pain. He calls it the dragon form, making it clear he's referring to Hiro. Then Hiro wonders if to defeat Dagonzoto, he will have to die too. Hiro replies that it's not certain, so Hiro walks away frustrated because he realizes that maybe he'll have to face his own death to complete his revenge. Right after, Hiro and Palupa go after him. Eren also tries to follow, but Tomet stops her, saying that this is something personal and it wouldn't be right to spy on him. Meanwhile, Sharisharu plays with a monster called Yellow Dog, which is a gift from Nambuko. She orders it to go after the hero. Then the creature's fur turns into red eyes that fly out to track the target. Serato says goodbye to them, returning to Hiro, who's sitting at the edge of a cliff. When Hiro and Palupa arrive, Hiro, who is a humanoid lizard, approaches saying he was just an adorable child, although now he's a young man full of insecurities. He recalls that his own son used to curl up like a ball whenever he was scolded for breaking something in his sleep. Paloopa joins the conversation, saying that Hiro always acted like that when he was feeling down, like at his parents' funeral or during training with Hiro. When he made a mistake, Hiro then asks what their goal is and where they want to go. Paloopa explains that Hiro used to study magic at night after training him, and that for 10 years he learned everything from scratch with him. He did that to understand the risks Barrow took to save his son, and also to properly take care of him. And right after that, Paloopa says they need to protect him and will always stay by his side. Hiro gets excited and asks if they'll stay until he gets the so-called Grand Troa. With that, he decides to find his father's treasure in order to try exchanging his heart with the dragons, and thus guarantee his survival. Right after, the group reunites and continues the journey, but Eri disappears again during the walk. Serato asks Hiro to listen to her beautiful heart beating, and Paloopa tries to correct her, saying it would be impossible for her to hear. She replies that she's paying attention. Tomet takes the moment to ask Hiro if he can activate his form whenever he wants, but suddenly we see one of Sharisharu's magic eyes spying on the group, letting her know exactly where they are. At that moment, she sets out with her soldiers in search of them, and soon after, the group arrives at a completely devastated village. There's no sign of the villagers, and as they get closer, they find a broken well with claw marks all over it. This brings back a traumatic memory from Hiro's past. He decides to search the area well before settling, but as they move through the ruins, he's faced with a childhood memory. That's when we're shown the sad past of Hiro and his parents, an ogre and a human. The other ogres are outraged to see a human woman in that house, blaming her for the destruction caused by humans. So they decide to execute both of them, the woman for betraying her race, and the man for being responsible for the village's downfall. Before being executed, Hiro's father tells his son, who was hiding, that a true hero never ignores a good deed. Meanwhile, in the present, Tomet enters an abandoned house to investigate and ends up finding several corpses. He runs out terrified when he realizes the one responsible for the massacre is still there and warns the group to flee. Behind him appears again that creature, a grotesque mix of orca and human running after him. Hiro explains that it's one of Nambuko's experiments. Hiro gets furious and stands in front of him to protect him, trying to attack the monster with his giant sword, but misses, and the beast goes after Hiro. Hiro tries to transform into a dragon, but no matter how hard he tries, he can't activate the power. Gyro saves him, and this time hits the creature with a strike to its side. Somewhere else, we see Eren meeting Sharisharu to try to talk to Nambuko and relay some information. When they're alone, Eren tells the merchant that Hiro is Barrow's son and that the dragon's heart is inside him. Nambuko gets suspicious and asks why she's revealing this. Eren replies that she wants to be rewarded for sharing something so valuable. As thanks, Nambuko gives her an item called Alchina and says that if Hiro really is Barrow's son, he'll return to claim the Grand Troa. Then, Nambuko calls Sharisharu to talk with Eren and directly asks her to kill Hiro, and Eren accepts that easily, without hesitation. Later, we find out that Eren followed Nambuko's order to the letter. She received Sharisharu through a Chinese woman and is now heading to the village where the group is staying. Once there, Hiro pretends to buy a sword, but Paloopa warns him. He says it has to be something cheap, since the group barely has any money and still has a long road ahead. After some time, they arrive at an inn and get a room, but they need to cook and eat on their own to avoid spending too much. Soon after, Hiro tests several swords until he finds the ideal one, a shorter, lighter blade, perfect for him to use. When Serato sees the sword, she admits she feels a bit uneasy about it, but even so, Hiro decides to keep the weapon. Later, Hiro and Serato are walking through the market when she's drawn to a crescent moon-shaped accessory. She stops in front of the shop and the seller tries to convince them to buy it, but it's too expensive. Then Serato shows Hiro the coin she had received from him, and Hiro responds that he loved the shiny stone, so there was no need to buy anything else. After that, the two leave the store and meet up with Hiro. Elsewhere, Eren heads to the weapons shop and buys 5 arrows with enchanted feathers, capable of easily taking down a large monster. That night, the group gathers for dinner and discusses what to do about what Baharupa said regarding Master Tio. At that point, Hiro finds out that this person used to be his father's doctor. Serato mentions that her team knows that Dr. Well and they're quite close to him. So the plan becomes to find the doctor and have a conversation. But for now, everyone goes to rest and heads to their own rooms. However, that very same night, something incredibly strange begins to unfold. A sinister shadow begins to grow and slowly move throughout the city, while some members of the group are still asleep. Gyro and Hiro talk about the previous village, and Hiro asks why Gyro saved him. Gyro replies that it's just part of his job. When Hiro explains that he can't sleep, he says it's because of the dragon inside him that won't let him rest. Soon, the group hears the sound of explosions coming from outside the inn and rushes out to see what's going on. It seems like the shadow of a dragon is destroying homes and absorbing anyone it touches with its long arms. Hiro tries to run toward the creature, thinking it's Dagonzodo, but Gyro stops him and says that doing that would be a bad idea. The shadow charges at them, and Gyro thrusts his sword into the ground, trying to hit the monster, but misses and gets captured. Serato tries to run to help the two, but Tomet stops her. She stays there, visibly distressed, realizing that whatever this is, it's definitely not Dagonzodo. And at that moment, Sharisharu appears next to Hiro, and we find out that the monster was created by Nambuko. He had asked Baharu to create the creature, and later handed it over to the witch. Sharisharu then orders the monster to devour Gyro immediately. Meanwhile, she points the tip of a sharp umbrella at Hiro and fills their hearts with thorn. At the same time, Baharu watches everything unfold beside Nambuko and tells her that she must not kill Hiro because he is Serato's future. Hiro manages to grab Sharisharu's weapon just before it pierces his chest, but she shocks him with electricity. And that's when we learn Nambuko's true plan. He wants to put the dragon's heart in danger to force Dagonzodo to show up. Sharisharu keeps pushing the weapon against him, trying to pierce his heart. But Hiro is distracted, desperately begging her not to hurt Gyro. Still, she manages to slightly pierce his skin, which causes Hiro to completely lose control and enter a full state of rage, activating his dragon form. Sharisharu is thrown far away just by the energy released in that moment, and right after that, Hiro charges forward with everything he has, as a series of dark lightning bolts begin to surround him. He heads straight into the battle against the soldiers sent by Nambuko, and that's when Dagonzodo starts to rise from the shadows, approaching Hiro. But Gyro appears and blocks the way, with Eren stepping in to help and save him. Then Hiro grabs a sword, and, in a burst of energy, launches an attack toward the dragon. But the blade misses Dagonzodo, and instead lands a direct hit on Gyro. At the same time, we see Sharisharu and her group retreating from the battle, and all the cameras that were spying on Hiro begin to explode right in front of Baharu and Nambuko. Slowly, Hiro starts to come back to his senses, and meanwhile, Serato suddenly starts to feel very unwell. Moments later, everyone gathers around Gyro, who is lying on the ground in the middle of a pool of blood. Hiro instantly realizes what he has done, and by the next morning, Gyro is lying down, badly wounded, being treated by Serato and Hiro. He looks clearly shaken by what happened and deeply guilty for attacking his own friend. Suddenly, Gyro wakes up because of the smell of the food that Palupa is cooking. Everyone is relieved that he regained consciousness, and Hiro immediately apologizes. Palupa tries to comfort him, saying it was because of the transformation and the dragon going out of control. Gyro comments that it's a serious risk, especially because that form is still active, and there might come a moment when he can't turn back anymore. Shortly after, he lies back down and suggests they ask Master Tal if he knows anything about this matter. Later on, Palupa tries to get medicine from Mamu, but she offers him a rare and extremely expensive plant far beyond his means. In the end, she just leaves, while Eren says she knows where to find a medicine called Seraphuria. Then Hiro and Serato start running off in search of the medicine. Meanwhile, Nambuko is seen receiving order after order for weapons, ammunition, and armor from all over. He even orders rumors to be spread claiming that one of the countries has captured the dragon, just to throw everyone into a panic and boost sales even further. At the same time, Sharisharu is locked inside a room along with the yellow-furred dog, since Nambuko told her he never wants to see her again. Over at the canyon, Hiro and Serato finally arrive at the location. She tries to calm him down, telling him that everything's going to be okay, that they will find the Seraphuria plant, and she also says the heart is doing well too. That part leaves Hiro a bit confused, and meanwhile Eren is still at the inn taking care of Gyro when Tomido approaches the group. He shares his doubts about Serato, saying she never eats anything, never smiles, and that Sharisharu always manages to find out where they are. He also says Baharopa is linked to Nambuko, and due to Serato's connection with the doctor, he finds it hard to fully trust her. At the same same time, Hiro and Serato reach a part of the canyon where they spot the medicinal plant they need. But it's all the way at the end of a long and treacherous path. Hiro tells Serato to wait there at the top, but she refuses and decides to go with him, determined to help Gyro herself. They spend some time exploring the lower part of the canyon, but find nothing, until suddenly a giant horned toad leaps out from the tall grass and attacks them. Serato pushes Hiro away from the creature, and they both start running, slipping on the wet ground as it begins to rain. Soon after, Serato spots a rare silver ore embedded high up in a mound of earth. Hiro immediately climbs up there, and in the meantime, Eren explains that both Tomito and Hiro had heard directly from Nambuko that he wanted to kill Hiro, but later decided to change his plan. She reveals they have an Ostina device, and that's how she was able to hear what the merchant had been plotting. After that, Eren speculates that Nambuko is trying to figure out the connection between Hiro, Daganzodo, and Palupa, and that's when she realizes why he brought everyone together in the same place. Back with Hiro, he tries with all his strength to pull the herb out of the ground, but can't manage to uproot it. Suddenly, the terrain begins to tremble, and a massive turtle appears, revealing that the mountain was actually the shell of a huge monster. Meanwhile, Eren makes it clear to the others that they have to run and head straight to the land where wishes go to die. The cat girl explains that Nambuko is selling weapons and resources to the three largest nations, all driven by the fear of Daganzodo, and that he also controls the market price of magic stones to keep his grip on the situation. In other words, he's making a huge profit in a very short time. But if this keeps up, a full-scale war will erupt across the entire continent, and it will become impossible to cross the battlefield to reach Nambuko. That's why they need to act fast and get their hands on the powerful substance if they want to avenge their parents and bring this entire story to an end once and for all. After much effort, Hiro finally manages to get a hold of the herb, but he ends up slipping off the turtle's back, and Serato catches him in her arm. She giggles slightly as she's still holding him. Once they descend, he mentions that it's the first time he's ever seen her laugh since they first met. Serato then lowers her gaze for a moment, but quickly returns to smiling. The two exchange a look full of warmth and joy. Back home, the medicine made from the Seraphuria starts to take effect. The treatment works, and Hiro shows great improvement. Meanwhile, Tomet is seen using Eren's Ostina to speak with Pechate, and when she returns, she brings very bad news. In her town, the people are being forced to work in the mines, but only the poor are sent there, basically to die, and there's no food anywhere nearby. Tomet is outraged by the situation and begins to cry, vowing that he will get the Grand Thrower to help them. With that, the group decides to take a moment to rest the next day. After eating and recovering, everyone sets off for the village, and Tomet comments to a Palupa that he no longer feels that uneasiness when Serato is around. As they ascend the sacred mountain, an odd-looking man suddenly appears, floating beside Hiro, Palupa, and the rest of the group. He has green hair and pointed ears. They recognize him instantly. It's Master Tio. He asks if they brought him a gift, but the moment he sees Serato, he completely forgets about that and runs to hug her, since the two already knew each other from the past. Soon after, the group heads to a nearby cave where Master Tio lies. There, they explain everything that happened to Hiro, and out of nowhere, he starts questioning the professor, asking why he did nothing to save his parents or prevent the catastrophe from happening. But Master Tio replies by saying that just like no one can stop the force of nature, it was also impossible to face an evil dragon by force alone. Then the old man stands up and tells Hiro to follow him, saying it's time for them to practice magic. The problem is, Hiro feels very uncomfortable with that. Since he's a swordsman, he has nothing to do with magic. But before they begin the training outside, the master sends Hiro and Tometir away, using the excuse that they need to fetch water and meat. Eren also steps away for a bit, and in that moment, the master asks Hiro whether the ground he's standing on is level. Hiro replies that it's not, but even so, he's instructed to take a step forward. Then he asks if that step was straight, and Hiro says yes. Immediately, the master questions how a step can be straight if the ground is tilted. He then hands Hiro a sheet of paper with Serato's face drawn on it and tells him to crumple it. Afterward, he has Hiro stretch the paper back out several times without explaining why. And meanwhile, Eren is on a nearby hill with the Ostina, listening in on the conflict that is just about to break out. She realizes it's only a matter of time before everything explodes, and after a long while practicing with the paper, Serato approaches and asks asks to see Hiro's drawing. When he shows the paper to the master, the old man watches the two of them with surprise, suspicious that the bond between them is starting to grow stronger. For the next part of the training, Master Tio tells Hiro to choose a stone. He picks one, but Serato takes the chance to show him the coin she had given him earlier. Hiro replies by saying that this coin is actually the stone he received, and the master compliments him, saying the coin is beautiful and suits him perfectly. After that, the old man instructs Hiro to point to the exact place where he wants the stone to fall. Hiro chooses a spot, but the stone doesn't land where he intended. Even so, the master corrects him, and Hiro insists that the stone fell exactly where he wanted, so it's fine. Right after that, he draws his sword and threatens the master, which prompts Palutau to intervene, but in the end, the old man agrees to train with him using a sword instead. Master Tio positions himself in front of Hiro and grabs something invisible with both hands, calling it a sword. He then strikes Serato's magical staff with it and hits it, and later explains that this is a kind of magic, even though he refers to it as a sword, and encourages Hiro to try it himself. Hiro imitates the master's movement, pretends to hold an invisible sword named Coco, and launches a direct attack that ends up cracking a nearby rock. Even though he had thought this whole thing was a waste of time, the master praises his effort, and they continue training for several hours, while the rest of the group focuses on other tasks. By the end of the day, everyone rests after so much activity, each with their own responsibilities. Meanwhile, Sharisharu is deeply disheartened, even while locked away in her room, until suddenly a guard shows up asking her to meet with Nambuko. At the same time, Hiro is with Master Tio, having a conversation about himself about how much he resembles his father, Barrow. There, Master Tio tells Hiro that even after 10 years, he still hasn't reached the same level with a sword as the boy has. People say Hiro has immense talent for magic, and that he's truly powerful, because no ordinary person would be able to carry the heart of a dragon inside them. Soon after that, the master continues talking with Hiro, explaining more about his power, and warns him that it's extremely dangerous, since the very first strike he made with the invisible sword had its force split without even touching Serato's staff. Even so, it still hit the old man. He only avoided serious injury because he managed to defend himself just in time. After that, the master reveals something else, that Serato and Hiro are like two halves of a couple that must always stay together. That revelation takes Hiro completely by surprise. Meanwhile, Sharisharu meets up with Nambuko again, and he welcomes her warmly with a hug, walking off with her and leaving the rest of the mission in Baharopa's hands. The next day, Hiro continues his training with Master Tio. The old man suggests he bend forward with his head between his legs. Hiro gets fed up with this bizarre training and storms off in frustration. Palupa agrees with him and says that there's no world where people use swords in that kind of stance that the master is teaching. Hiro says he's done, but then Master Tio proposes a final challenge. Hiro turns back, surprised by what he hears. The master tells him to strike him with the Coco sword, and that if he manages to hit him, he'll be free from training. Hiro feels a bit frustrated, thinking he doesn't have what it takes to use magic. Still, he focuses and launches a blow, but nothing seems to happen. Even so, the old man begins pretending to be in pain, exaggerating as always. He says the attack hit him, and with that, he decides that Hiro has passed the test and can move forward. As the group walks away, it becomes clear what really happened. The attack launched by Hiro was incredibly powerful, forcing Master Tio to defend himself using protection magic. He concluded that Barrow's decision to replace his son's heart with a dragon's was worth it, and that's why Hiro is able to control such absurd power. The group's adventure continues through several towns, rivers, and forests until they finally reach the desert, known as the Desert of Death. Beyond it lies the fate that awaits them, and right after, Hiro starts running across the desert, but an enemy bird appears in his path, and Hiro takes it down with a precise blow. Tomet then wonders how the enemies always manage to locate them at these moments. Erin's device suddenly activates. Nambuko's voice comes out, speaking directly to her. Everyone is shocked, realizing that Erin had been a spy infiltrated in the group this entire time, and now she's in serious trouble. When exposed, the cat girl picks up the device lying on the ground. The group demands the truth from her, and she confesses everything, saying there's no reason to lie anymore. She reveals she had been sending information to Nambuko. The others ask if she really sold them like merchandise, and she admits she received a good amount of money for it. Hiro even considers killing her on the spot, but after holding the sword at her for a few seconds, he realizes that wouldn't change anything. The entire group is disappointed and angry with Eren, and they decide to continue crossing the desert of death, ignoring her warnings about the dangers ahead. She still throws out a remark, saying no one should come crying back later. And somewhere else, we see Sharisharu about to carry out another of Nembuko's order. A nearby guard tries to stop her, but she says she's only doing what Nembuko told her to do. She then asks Dr. Baharopa to activate his invention, and right after that, Sharisharu enters a kind of crystal capsule. We see that Yellow Dog on the other side, separated from her by a barrier, and as soon as she enters, Dr. Baharopa triggers the device. The crystal capsules then begin to emit a bright light, to the surprise of the guard who was watching everything. Back with Hiro's group, they keep walking through the scorching desert, struggling against the unbearable heat. And yeah, that's basically me on any regular Monday, fighting the heat. Anyway, Tomet soon starts complaining about the heat, and the group's morale keeps dropping. Even so, Hiro believes they can get through this without relying on the traitor Eren. Meanwhile, in another kingdom, we see the leaders preparing for a war. That could involve every nation. They are acting based on the false information manipulated by Nembuko, so they end up believing that the king of Saint Amoria has allied with the king of Van Lodi to free the dragon Dagonzoto and throw the continent into chaos. That's why the king decides to take action. He gathers his troops and heads for the neutral zone, intending to protect the people and put an end to this conflict. When night falls, Hiro and his allies set up camp in the middle of the desert, but face another challenge. This time, it's the freezing cold of night, completely opposite to the blistering heat of the day. Palupa asks if they're far from reaching the land where wishes die, and Gyro replies they'll still need to endure at least 3 more nights in that desert. The next morning, Hiro's group resumes their journey across the desert, and they're nearly out of water. Out of nowhere, Palupa slips on a sand slope and falls right into the trap of a creature known as the Jangolo. It closely resembles a giant worm. At that moment, as Palupa begins sliding toward the center of the trap, a monster shows up and tries to devour him on the spot. But Gyro and the rest of the group react quickly and throw something for him to grab onto. Even so, they can't stop Palupa from being left hanging by just a piece of clothing thrown by his friend. He's about to be devoured when suddenly something falls beside him, a log tied to a rope. It's Eren who throws it, arriving just in time to help. She and Gyro work together to pull the lizard man back, and the Jungalo sinks back into the sand after failing its attempt. After being pulled up, Palupa thanks Eren for saving him, but Gyro gets irritated and says he doesn't even want to see her painted in gold. Even so, he insists that if they keep going the way they are, they're going to get lost. They're heading completely in the wrong direction. Everyone is surprised, and Eren shows them a massive dead monster. She implies that if they don't listen to what she has to say and accept her help, they're gonna end up like that creature over there. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Shilfen, the king falls into Nembuko's plan and starts believing that the Van Lods and Santa Amoria kingdoms have formed an alliance, thinking that they begin to take action and make decisions. Right after that, some doors open and the king shows up. Elsewhere, Hiro's group finds themselves facing a massive sandstorm. They even try to escape, but it's no use. After a while, the group gets separated and Palupa wakes up beside Eren, who's stuck with him. He asks where the others are, but she doesn't know and says the best option is to find an oasis. Maybe they'd find something. On another side of the desert, Gyro finds Tommy passed out, clearly affected by the storm. Now the two of them are all alone. Meanwhile, Hiro walks with Serato right through the scorching heat. Although she seems pretty calm, nightfall approaches and Palupa is still searching for the oasis with Eren, but nothing shows up. At this point, Palupa starts feeling drained and Eren offers to carry some of his stuff, but he refuses, saying he doesn't want someone like her touching his thing. Eren explains she's just an informant and tried to infiltrate Nambuko's ranks to steal his Grand Troa, but she got caught before she could. Even so, Palupa's in such bad shape that he's barely hanging on, begging for water. Hiro's not doing any better, trembling, cold and thirsty. Serato stays right by his side, clearly distressed. The next morning, Palupa wakes up feeling better thanks to Eren's care. Meanwhile, Hiro is worse than ever. Serato realizes he'll die if nothing is done. She looks around and seems to catch the scent of a nearby spring. Feeling it's close, she takes off part of her clothes and heads toward the source. Elsewhere, Hiro is carrying Tomet on his back, and they end up spotting Palupa and Eren walking in the distance. Once they meet, Palupa says Hiro survived thanks to the cat girl, and Hiro replies that Tomet needs water fast. Eren says the oasis is nearby, but Hiro asks if she can be trusted. She answers that she doesn't want to die in that desert either, and will head to the oasis. It's up to them to follow or not, and in the end, they choose to follow her again. Meanwhile, Serato finds some water and rushes to give it to Hiro, who is starting to hallucinate and recall childhood memories. After drinking a little, he gets better, and Serato helps him walk as they keep searching for more water and their friends. Another group arrives at the oasis. Right after, Paloopa and Eren throw themselves into the water without hesitation, while Hiro gives water to Tomet, who soon shows signs of recovery. Meanwhile, Serato and Hiro keep walking through an area with puddles scattered around, but suddenly, they see something coming their way fast. Looking closer, they realize it's Sharisharu, now fused with the yellow dog. She's way faster and stronger than before, and with a single blow, she knocks Serato down and grabs Hiro. Right after, she uses a glowing blue stone to teleport both of them directly to Nambuko, and they vanish in an instant. Meanwhile, the nations begin organizing their armies in Balboa, preparing for one more decisive battle on the same battlefield as 10 years ago. Hiro then wakes up and realizes he's face to face with Nambuko, who calls him the heart of Daganzodo. But Hiro doesn't care about that. He just wants his father's treasure back and already pulls out his sword, ready to demand what's his. But when he tries to attack, Nambuko rushes forward and holds a sword to his neck, making a direct threat, and then reveals they've already met before. Nambuko says he was at the Balboa tragedy, and that's where he got the Grand Troa. The merchant admits he was the one who fired the arrow that wounded Barrow, and because of that, Barrow couldn't finish sealing the dragon. 10 years ago, he already had the same plan in mind to cause destruction using Daganzodo, to force the kingdoms to spend everything they had. That way, he'd become absurdly rich, and then he explains that he survived that place and that class because he had a crystal made from dragon blood, and says he was deeply impressed by the dark flames of Daganzodo. He asks Hiro what it's like to carry a dragon's heart, since he thought the beast had died 10 years ago. But Hiro gets furious, saying it's insane to admire something that killed hundreds of people, including his parents. Once again, Hiro tries to attack, but Nambuko easily disarms him and says he has no intention of killing him because that way he can keep control of the dragon. Meanwhile, the group is in the desert trying to locate Hiro, and Serato is also helping in that search. They use Eren's Alxina to try finding some trace of him, when suddenly they hear her voice, but it's weak, almost fading, and they all run quickly in the direction the object points to. As they get close, they realize Serato is alone and hitting a huge crystal stone with her magic staff. Hiro is alarmed by the scene and warns that if she keeps doing that, she'll attract a dragon, so he realizes he must help her immediately. But even so, she keeps striking the stone hard, and keeps calling for Hiro until her staff breaks. At that moment, a dragon appears flying at an extremely high speed straight at her. As it opens its mouth, Serato smiles and gives in, letting herself be swallowed. Then Paloopa remembers that when they first met her, she also came out of a dragon's mouth, and the dragon approaches the group, and when it opens its mouth, Serato is revealed inside. It says it's their ally and that it will take them to Hiro. Right after, we see everyone on top of the red dragon, flying across the desert through the sky. Serato is sitting inside its mouth, and elsewhere Nambuko contacts Dr. Baharupa to continue his plan of conquering the entire continent. The doctor says he only needs to include the sealed treasure in the project he's building to achieve that, but the doctor warns that it will be necessary to consume all the mansion's energy. Nambuko instantly agrees to that without even arguing. Soon after, we see the doctor detecting something very strange on his radar, and right after, we see the group flying on the dragon toward the mansion. Tomet comments that place looks way more like a mansion than a demonic castle. Eren explains that the place was ruled by a demon named Jeroquia, and when they hear that, Paloopa and Tomet ask if that wasn't just a spooky story to scare kids. But Eren reveals he really existed, and says that a hero named Dal Halbart was the one who defeated him, and that the castle was completely destroyed. Even so, there's still a very strong magic in the ruins, the exact same magic Nambuko wants to use, and that still protects the whole region. Suddenly, a giant spear is fired from the enemy fortress, hitting the dragon hard and killing it instantly. The dragon falls into a lower area nearby, but the group manages to hide just in time. Meanwhile, Nambuko's subordinates approach to check the dragon's body, looking for the intruders, who are clearly moving around in that area. But now they face a new problem. The mansion is at a higher point, and there's no way up there, since Mamu can't be used again. At that moment, a portal opens, The doctor steps out of it and immediately calls for Serato, and when she sees him, she runs to him. Baharopa is thrilled to see his daughter again and says they need to leave there as fast as possible. So he opens another portal and everyone manages to escape through it just in time. After that, everyone is safe, and Gyro and the others begin to question if Serato is really the doctor's daughter. But she reveals that she was raised by him under Nambuko's orders, and that shocks the group because no one really knows who she is. Then Baharopa explains that she's actually a magical doll he created. Hearing that, Palupa gets shaken for never having noticed it, even though she never ate anything. He just thought she was frugal and hoarded too much food. Then he asks Tomet if he ever suspected it, and the boy says he had his doubts, because he always felt like she was way too different from them. Then the doctor continues explaining that Nambuko was present at the Battle of Balboa 10 years ago, the greatest battle the world has ever seen, but Gyro disagrees, saying that's not possible, because only he and Hiro survived that fight against the dragon and its soul-devouring flames. But the doctor reveals he survived thanks to the dragon blood crystal. That crystal is made from Dagonzoto's wounded blood, and it serves as protection against the flames. After that, he says Nambuko asked him to use that kind of crystal to create the most powerful warrior ever. A warrior who could withstand even an environment taken over by those soul-draining flames. But the doctor didn't want to follow that path, so instead, he created his masterpiece. He reveals that this perfect creation is Serato, beautiful and full of kindness. But that made Nambuko furious, and he ordered her to be eliminated. Baharopa refused to do that to his own creation, and instead of destroying her for real, he only faked. In reality, he allowed her to escape and gain her freedom. Serato tells the doctor that after that event, she met Hiro, and then she reveals to the group that she felt the connection to the sound of his heart. And that's when Hiro drops the bomb. His heart was replaced by Dagonzoto's dragon heart 10 years ago. The doctor then starts to understand the link between Hiro's heart and the crystal used to create her. But then Serato kills the mood, saying she needs to go to Hiro right away. Only the doctor objects and asks her to leave the boy alone, because the dragon's hour is drawing near. That's the moment when great disasters will happen, and Nambuko plans to summon Dagonzoto. Even so, Serato ignores the doctor's order. She says she won't leave Hiro to his fate, and right after that she flees, being followed by Eren. Seeing that, the doctor wonders if she developed her own conscience, since she had never disobeyed any command before. He then asks the rest of the group to watch over her. Palupa and Tomet don't like what the old man said at all, but Hiro responds firmly that they'll take care of her and also rescue the hero from Nambuko's clutches. Shortly after, Serato and the group reach a room where there's a giant stone, and then Nambuko and Sharisharu appear. They're holding the hero in their hands. Nambuko tells Serato he was waiting for her, and she offers to take Hiro's place, but he refuses, explaining he needs both of them to complete his plan. Soon after, he threatens to hurt Hiro, and Serato goes toward them. Then Sharisharu opens a portal and throws all three of them straight to Balboa. At that moment, Kuryu runs to stop the spell, but Sharisharu blocks his attack and says that now she's his rival. When they arrive in Balboa, Nambuko forces Hiro to look at the stage where his fate was sealed 10 years ago. The sun begins to darken, triggering an eclipse, and the different armies of the kingdoms prepare for the worst, thinking it's the end of everything. The dragon's hour has come. The magic stones prepared in Balboa are finally activated, using the last of the energy from the Hirakia. Sharisharu explains there's nothing more to be done and reveals that Nambuko's real plan was to gather the soldiers of the three kingdoms and merge them with Dagonzoto, creating a creature even more powerful than the original dragon. Suddenly, the sphere where the Hirakias are begins to close, sending its energy directly to Balboa. The group warns Sharisharu that everyone is going to die, but she assures them that Nambuko wouldn't let that happen to her. Soon after, a kind of screen appears where he speaks to everyone in the sphere. He says he'll use all their souls' magic and thanks them for sacrificing themselves for his plan. Men, assistants, and servants all start screaming and begging for help. Only Sharisharu still believes she'll be saved. But then he cuts the communication, and only then does Sharisharu realize he never really cared about her, and she begins to cry, desperate and angry. At that moment, Baharopa says he's going to try to get the group out of there, and he reveals the girl's true body is in Balboa. Meanwhile, Nambuko tells Serato that something inside her will soon awaken. But shortly after, the real Baharopa appears and tries to stop him. But that wasn't part of the villain's plan, who attacks the old man and leaves him lying wounded, completely wrecked on the pavement down there. Right afterward, he stares at Serato and casts a spell on her so she won't disobey anymore. She transforms, revealing a new form, and Nambuko Nambuko commands her to fight Hiro. The goal is very simple. The fear she causes will make Dagonzoto's heart beat inside him, and that alone will be enough to bring the dragon back. Hiro begs Serato not to obey, and he doesn't want to fight her, but the girl charges straight at him. Meanwhile, inside the sphere, everyone is trying to find a way out, but they can't at all. Paloopa feels sorry for Sharisharu, but the group realizes that Momo might be the key to escape, but she says she can't get in like that. And Paloopa asks if there's any weapon that can destroy the sphere. She says yes, so everyone starts offering gold, weapons, and jewels in exchange for her help. And before they leave, Hiro speaks to Sharisharu and promises that once they escape, he'll take them to Balboa. She accepts angrily and says she'll deal with Nambuko personally. And right after that, Momo positions a magic cannon outside the sphere and fires at the Vedic layers protecting it. Meanwhile, Hiro starts transforming into a dragon, and Serato keeps attacking. Nambuko warns that if he doesn't complete the transformation, he'll die, and in the middle of all that, he encourages them to fight. He sees beauty in the duel between two people united by fate, and the dragon's mark keeps spreading across Hiro's body. He launches an attack on Serato, just as the allies were teleporting there, and Hiro strikes with full force, but Serato easily blocks it. And right after that, he swings another blow from above, continuing the fight. Seeing the situation, Hiro tries to move closer, but he's caught off guard when Sharisharu strikes him with her sword. He asks why she did that, and that's when we see her eyes glowing the same way Serato's do. And we find out it's Nambuko's spell, which prevents her from disobeying. Crying, Sharisharu says she only did it because she's a fool, and prepares to fight Hiro. Meanwhile, Serato and Hiro are exchanging punches and dodging attacks until Nambuko commands her to end the fight, and he suspends Hiro in the air. She starts slamming him into the ground repeatedly, and gets ready to pierce him with one of the sharp blades that extend from her head. But before she can, something hits Serato, throwing her away, and smoke starts to fill the place as the sun suddenly turns blood red. That shows the dragon's hour has finally come, and then Dagonzoto appears, furious. Quickly, Nambuko activates his machine and several beams of light hit the dragon. Excited with his plan, he tries to merge the dragon with thousands of gathered soldiers. But thinking that might ruin the dragon's beauty, he also connects Grand Troa to the device, asking it to merge with the dragon too. At that moment, the orb begins to pour out energy, and a massive explosion of light erupts from the dragon's body. Sharisharu and Giru try to reach Nambuko and Hiro but can't. And then we see that Nambuko really managed to merge. The doctor stands up in shock, just like everyone else who just witnessed what Nambuko had done. Nambuko detects Hiro's heartbeat and interrupts the attack he was about to launch. He says that even with the dragon's heart, the boy is still a weak human, and starts punching him non-stop in midair. While Hiro is getting beat up like a dog, he has a vision of his parents calling out to him, telling him he still has a mission to complete. So he grabs one of the dragon's claws and destroys it, causing the others to fall off as well. Meanwhile, Hiro's group receives orders from Dr. Baharupa. They all need to shut down the reactors at the same time. By doing that, they'll free Grand Troa from the machine, allowing magical energy to flow again throughout the area. The Earth reactor, where wishes die, starts to lose control, and at that moment, Nambuko rises while preparing his next strike. The soul-devouring flames also begin to spread, and the Doctor and his allies manage to reach the reactors and shut them down in time. Meanwhile, Serato wakes up and notices that Hiro's sword is also nearby. In the blink of an eye, the crystals that powered the reactors shatter, and Nambuko loses the strength he was building up. Hiro regains consciousness, and at that moment, he sees Tomater, and Paloopa, who was nearby, takes command of the troop. Even so, Nambuko reveals that it's already too late, and he channels the flames into one of his arms, then launches an attack on everyone. The flames begin to take over everything, covering the ground with fire and thick smoke, as Bajiropa runs to protect his daughter. When the fire and smoke start to clear, Nambuko sees that Serato stood in front of Hiro to shield him, and though the crystal in her chest appears to be dissolving, she looks at him and hands him back his sword. But at that very moment, Nambuko pierces her body and destroys the magic crystal she carried in her chest. At this point, he believes he's out of danger, thinking no one else has the strength to stop the soul-consuming flame. But Hiro fights back, slicing off Nambuko's arm with the sword, and declares that Nambuko will pay dearly for hurting Serato and killing his his parents. Without wasting time, he charges at Nambuko again and, surprisingly, manages to wound him with the blade. After all, a human shouldn't be able to hurt him, and Nambuko collapses to the ground, while Hiro takes the chance to run to Serato. She's still unconscious, and shortly after, his companions gather around, and from Nambuko's body, the true form of Dagonzoto emerges once more. Hiro sets Serato down in a safe place and prepares to stab himself with the sword, aiming to hit the dragon's heart. But then he remembers what he learned from Master Tio and asks Tomet to throw him the Grand Troa. Tomet follows his request and throws the item, and Hiro gets ready. He grabs the treasure, and a new sword emerges from the sphere of light. Right after, he leaps with the troop in one hand and the new sword in the other. It's clear this is the weapon Master Tio tried to teach him to master, and with a precise slash, Hiro exposes the creature's heart, and with Grand Troa's help, he manages to tear it out. Seeing this, Hiro asks him to instantly replace his own heart with the dragon. But Hiro runs over to Serato and gives the heart to her, and soon after, the beats begin to echo. Serato opens her eyes, beaming to see Hiro there, and meanwhile, Dagonzoto vanishes before them, and the sky opens up as the two stare at each other with a smile. Paloopa, Eren, and Tomet start arguing over the treasure chest, but by accident it falls and smashes on the ground, leaving everyone speechless, until Giro says that wasn't the real one, because the real version had already fulfilled its mission. Paloopa then asks Giro how Hiro used such incredible magic without relying on Grand Troa. Giro explains the boy's power was so unique that Master Tio had already recorded it, so in truth, Hiro never needed Grand Troa at all. Meanwhile, Hiro is overcome with emotion and hugs Serato with teary eyes. She asks why he's crying, and he says it's just sweat. Then Serato asks about the doctor, but only a piece of his cane remained. He was the one who ordered Nambuko's attack on her, and because of that, he managed to save Hiro. Seeing what's left of her father, Serato clutches the piece of the cane and cries, holding it close. A short while later, the group realizes the armies are retreating. Eren explains that she was the one who told the kings of all the kingdom that everything had been part of Nambuko's scheme, and that the truth behind their entire plan had already been exposed. With that, there's no more reason for war, and just then, a portal opens and Momo appeared, happy to see everyone still alive. And of course, Momo's ready to collect what they still owe him. Not far from there, Sharisharu cries when a few of Nambuko's soldiers find her. One of the ones she trusted most shows up and comforts her, saying they're finally free. He also says she looks even more beautiful now, which gives her a new spark of life, and she decides to go with them to enjoy her new life and her spectacular new body. Soon after, Hiro and the others build a grave for Dr. Baharopa, in the middle of a field full of flowers and green grass. After that, the group reminds Hiro that now, his heart beats outside of him, and Serato listens joyfully to the sound of his heart. Right after, they begin discussing their next steps, and Tomet says he wants to return to his companion, so Hiro gives him the Dahalbard emblem, saying Tomet needs it more than he does. Baharopa reminds them they'll need money to fund the journey back to the city. Meanwhile, Hiro decides to keep training with his sword, because even though he's skilled with magic, he'll always be a wandering swordsman. And this is where our video ends. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Crispy Dragons, so we know you watched till the end. And that's it, folks. Take care, God bless, thanks, and see you next time.